everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation about the first 100 days after October 7th in Israel. What has happened over the past 100 plus days? Again, as a quick recap, you have Hamas Fatah. So we know Hamas is crazy, but here we have Fatah not too far behind them, not condemning the acts of Hamas on October 7th. We have the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, I'm doing my air quotes here, of justice, coming out and saying that there may be proof, it appears to be proof, that there may be genocide activity going on from the Jews. Why has no one taken Hamas to court for their initial act? Why do they get off? I don't understand that. So great. Third, we've seen Jews standing up in defense of the usage of the word genocide. Now, like racism, it's like the word racism, like the word racist. I mean, I wish there was no such thing. I wish our country in America did not have the history that it has with dealing with Black people, with slavery. But it happened. And off the backs of those who have come before us, we've inherited a powerful tool, a powerful word to make sure it never happens again, to describe the heinous act of it. Likewise for the Jews. They've inherited a word to describe the heinous horror. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, go to the library. I've looked at a number of the documentaries. There were a lot of documentaries that were being recorded at the time of people going into these ovens or going into what they thought was showers, but it wasn't. It was a gas chamber. It's horrible, despicable. It should break your heart, just the very thinking of it. And then to see white people use the word racist more than I use the word, it makes me feel some kind of way. To be honest, it does. And to see Muslims using the word when these same countries, Arab countries, have in their charter the destruction of Israel, and now they use this word, it should make Jews feel some kind of way. And I'm glad to see that it is. We've also seen Benjamin Netanyahu say, I don't care what you say. Nobody's going to tell us that we cannot defend ourselves. So we're going to continue doing what it is that we're doing. I can appreciate that. But here's the thing that was really rubbing me raw is why in the world is South Africa even involved in any of this? They have a whole boatload of issues all by themselves. Why are they getting involved? Because again, it was South Africa who brought the case to the International Court of Justice. It was South Africa who did that. So let's just talk about why in the world would South Africa get involved in this messy and horrific situation? South Africa brought the case against Israel, accusing them of committing genocide in Gaza. Now, the party that is in rule in South Africa is Nelson Mandela's African National Congress. They have remained in power since Nelson Mandela, the African National Congress. But just like here in the United States, we get all caught up in nostalgia. We get all caught up in the names. We get all caught up in people and personalities when we should be focused on policies. What are your policies? These people in South Africa should have kicked the African National Congress to the curb a long time ago. And I'm going to tell you why. One, this party, the African National Congress, is broke. That gives you clue number one on why they have cozied up to Hamas and Iran, because they're broke. And it should bring to mind something that they did between circa 1600 and the mid 1800s. That is, they sold themselves to the highest bidder. I say it often. I'm not going to dwell on it here, but I will, I'm sure, at some later podcast, that all Black people who ended up in slavery was not as a result of the white man stealing them. The majority of Black people ended up in slavery as a direct result of other Black people selling them to the white man to come to America. But then when you read about, now, and again, slavery here in America was no bed of roses. It was horrible, right? Any kind of, one person usurping the will and the identity and the life of another. And it was heinous. I've talked about it. I've written about it. Slavery is horrible. Now, why do I even need to justify that as a Black person who grew up in the Deep South? It's because of the culture in which we live in. It is crazy. But when you read about what Muslims did to Black people who went into slavery, I mean, I don't want to say one form of slavery is better than another, but good God, the way Muslims treated Black people. I'm going to let y'all go read that on your own. Google that for a moment. Go get a couple of books on that for a moment. So why in the world would South Africa be cozying up to these people who have not been, and still today, Muslims are enslaving Black people from the continent of Africa, and they are inhumane. Still today, this is happening, right? As my brother would say, today, this is happening. It's not like it happened way back then sometime. Muslims are still enslaving Black people from the continent of Africa. So you have to ask yourself, why in the world would Black people in South Africa be cozying up to Hamas and Iran? And then you begin to learn, they're broke and corrupt. Now, I know a lot of people have nostalgia of Nelson Mandela. Move that out of your mind, okay? This is not the party of Nelson Mandela. Now, I don't know everything about Nelson Mandela. Maybe it is the party of Nelson Mandela. I have no idea. I would like to think not, from the things that I've read, or not to this degree anyway. And yet here we are. We have the Nelson Mandela party, the party of Nelson Mandela, called the African National Congress. They are broke. They are corrupt. They are the party in control of South Africa. They are the dominant party. So let's look at their policies. Let's get over the nostalgia of people and personalities. And let's look at policies. And in fact, let's just look at how those policies have shown up, right? Because it's one thing to have a policy. It's something different to look at how that policy actually show up. Because on paper, a lot of things can look good. But let's see how those policies actually show up in people's lives. So let's do that. Let me see. Where do I want to start? So much. Let's just start with the severe electricity shortfalls in South Africa. These are the policies of Nelson Mandela's party, the African National Congress. And one, they've been having scheduled rolling blackouts for up to 9 hours a day, starting back in 2022, hitting a peak of 10 hours a day, rolling blackouts a day across all of South Africa. Now, but this didn't just start in 2022 or 2023. They've been dealing with these scheduled rollouts since 2007. Okay? Talk about not learning your lesson, and keeping on electing these same people to come forward with their same policies. At the end of the second quarter of 2023, just last year, there were about 74,000 fewer jobs than at the end of 2019, with women and youth persistently more impacted. So their economy is shrinking. They're in the dark. I don't know how they're living 9 hours, 10 hours. So you just sleep. I guess it's, like mandatory go to bed time. If you got 9 to 10 hours of dark and you can't do anything, you can't read. I mean, what are you doing? Kerosene lamps? I don't know. Crazy, right? But not only that, but the job market, your economy is shrinking. Inequality remains among the highest in the world, inequality. The poverty rate was an estimated 62.6% in 2022. Only about 39% of the nation is employed. So over 60% of the nation is jobless. And the ANC, this is Nelson Mandela's party, the African National Congress, has been facing bankruptcy for years. So desperate for money, the party, it's like the Republican Party, so desperate for money that they turned to crowdfunding to stabilize its finances. Their people are broke, so the people can't donate. Businesses are hightailing it out of there. So you can't go to corporate PACs to get money because everybody is fleeing. And so what are you left with? They're so desperate for money because, again, the job market is shrinking. Their people are not working, so their people cannot donate to the party. And businesses are hightailing it out of there. That's the reason why their economy is shrinking. So they don't really have a way to fundraise. So they've decided to take to crowdfunding. So they're just out here begging and pleading. Anybody with $1, give us some money. We are broke. We need help, right? It's kind of like the Republican Party crowdfunding, right? Like how ridiculous is that, right? What have you been doing with the money? And are you actually implementing policies that will excite the base so that we can give money to you? Because certainly if you are working in my favor and doing things that are helping me, I'm going to be greatly inclined to make sure you have the resources you need to continue doing good work. But kind of like the Republican Party, South Africa, Mandela's party, the African National Congress, they're out here begging money from everyone. And now they've taken to crowdfunding. You can see the photo that we have there on the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, the Kathy Barnette Show, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see that. In a word or two, they are a hot mess right now. All of South Africa is in a hot mess right now. They have a plethora of problems. Picking an issue for them to worry about is kind of like drinking from a fire hydrant. They are just swamped with problems. So why on God's green earth would they pick Hamas as the problem they want to champion? They got enough problems. They got rolling blackouts. They got an economy that's shrinking. They have people who are unemployed. Inequality among the wealthy and others are at its highest. So why, out of all these problems that they're facing in their own country, why would they look over to Hamas and Gaza and say, yeah, that's our issue? Why would they say that? Here's one clue. South Africa took the case to the International Court of Justice, claiming Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. So why would they do that? They have enough problems of their own. Why would they go over here and say, okay, those people over there, yeah, that's the problem we want to address? Why would they do that? Here's one clue. 1, they're broke. 2, they're a hot mess. 3, high corruption rate, right? So get this. The same week, South Africa brought the charge against Israel of genocide to the International Court of Justice. Mandela's party, the African National Congress, the party that is in control of South Africa, the party that is broke, The party whose policies are resulting in 10 hours a day rolling blackouts every day announced suddenly their finances have been stabilized. They're no longer broke. And they won't tell us where they got the money from. Go figure. Sadly, I wish this didn't happen to anyone, but if it was going to happen, I wish I could say that it is just germane to those people over there in those countries. But no, it's here in our country, in America as well. But I thought that was kind of interesting as we wrap that up, that portion about why, out of all the problems South Africa is contending with, why would they make Gaza one of them? I mean, they got 99 problems. Gaza should not be one of them. And yet it is. They have their own inequalities that's going on. They have their own dire poverty that's going on. I mean, 39%, 60% of the nation is unemployed. Why is Gaza one of their problems? Well, again, the very same week, these people don't even try to hide it anymore. They're so blatant and brazen that they take a case on behalf of Hamas to the International Court of Justice just to continue being a pebble in Israel's shoe. And then the International Court of Justice sides with South Africa, ruling that there is evidence that maybe Israel is committing genocide against Gazans. That same week that they take the case, job done, all of a sudden, they announce they've been able to stabilize their finances. So they're no longer teetering on bankruptcy. Funny how that happens. It's not funny. It's quite sad. So what have we learned over the past 100 days? Last week, we talked about there's two main parties in the state of Palestine. Hamas is one and Fatah is the other. Well, we know Hamas is crazy and diabolical, evil, barbarians. Look to October 7th for proof. So then you will look to the other side of the party and say, well, surely you guys recognize that Hamas has lost their mind and that this is intolerable. This is unacceptable. This is barbaric. We will not be associated with this. Instead, what you see is Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the state of Palestine, to my knowledge, still have not said anything. However, the secretary of Fatah Central Committee stood up in late November of last year, saying, in fact, October 7th is as a direct result due to Israel. Israel is responsible for October 7th taking place. That's one thing we've learned. The second thing we've learned is that South Africa brought a case accusing Israel of genocide to the International Court of Justice. I mean, each part of that name, International Court of Justice, is like an oxymoron. Go out there and research it yourself. But they've ruled over the course during these 100 plus days. We've seen that they have now ruled against Israel, siding with South Africa, that there is, in fact, according to them, evidence that Israel is possibly committing genocide. We see Netanyahu standing up with a firm backbone, saying nobody is going to tell us, Israel, what to do and how to defend ourselves. We have the right to defend ourselves. We talked about that in last week's recording. You can go and look at that. We've also talked about the word genocide. I've been very encouraged to see the Jewish community standing up and pushing against those misusing the word genocide to describe what they are doing in defending themselves Hello, everyone. Mike Lindell and My Pillow employees want to thank my listeners for all of your continued support. And to thank you, they're having an overstock clearance and new product sale right now for the best prices ever when you use promo code Kathy. That's Kathy with a K. And you get free shipping on your entire order. Get 50% off the My Pillow 2.0. Also, you get 50% off the brand new flannel sheets that just arrived. Y'all know it's cold out there, so you will need it, and you know they won't last long. 6-pack towel sets are only $29.98, and take advantage of the free shipping on larger items such as mattresses and mattress toppers. 100% made in the USA for sale as low as $99.99. Everything is on sale, from their brand new kitchen towels that have the same technology as the bath towels that actually absorb, the dog bed. And let me tell you, the dog bed is amazing. Harriet, our chocolate lab, she sleeps on it every night. It is, not only is it beautiful, it's comfortable. I found my dog and my daughter laying on the bed all together, but you can get blankets, couch pillows, and so much more. To get it and to get the best specials ever, go to mypillow.com or call 800-988-3934 and use promo code Kathy, and you get free shipping on your entire order. So call 800-988-3934 or go to mypillow.com, use promo code Kathy with the K. Thank you so much for listening, and blessings. And even if you say, well, Israel is occupying, I'm going to talk about, I think as hard as this is going to be, and I want to do warning right now. If you have children in the room and you don't want them to hear this, please practice discretion, because I think it is important. Because even if you're on the side of, well, Israel is occupying, Israel is being, Israel is being unfair, Israel is taking their land, Israel needs to decide a two-state solution, whatever, right? Assuming you are not an immoral beast of an individual, an evil person. And I'm just going to assume that you are, have somewhat of a moral compass that points in the right direction. But you feel as though, well, maybe Israel is occupying Palestinians' land. Maybe they are, maybe they should not, maybe Israel should not have control over their natural resources. I don't know what your argument may be, but let's assume in good faith you have some kind of argument that says, well, what do you expect Hamas to do, or the Palestinian people to do? They must fight back. They have a right to fight back as well. Maybe that's your position. I don't know. I disagree with that position, but maybe that's your position. And as a result, let's talk about what Hamas actually did, because I certainly believe that people should be able to stand up for themselves and speak truth, even to power, and vigorously debate. And sometimes war is a necessary evil. We see that all around us. It's a part of the human story. But let's talk about, because there are rules of engagement. Most humane societies believe there should be rules of engagement. So allow me a moment to just walk through. Over the course of 100 days, we've learned the extent of the brutality of what happened on October 7th. I want to talk about some of that, because what we've seen is the mutilation, the rape, the abduction, tortured children. Children were being tortured in front of their parents. Parents were being tortured in front of their children. We've seen people being burned including infants alive. We've seen the systematic rape and mutilation of scores of men and women and children. Over the course of 100 days, we now know that roughly 12,200 people were butchered on that one day. So when I say October 7th was the largest calculated mass murder of Jews in a single day, 12,200 people butchered, more than 5,500 maimed, 240 hostages abducted, including infants and entire families, persons with disabilities and Holocaust survivors, some of whom have since been executed, many of whom have been tortured, sexually abused, and starved. These barbarians filmed and broadcasted their barbarism, so we don't have to guess and wonder at many of this. There are recordings. You can go to my Twitter page at Kathy for Truth, and I have a recording of one Palestinian in the home of a Jewish family calling his dad and mom, and you hear his brother gets on the phone, and he is just in ecstasy. He's telling them, I just killed 10 Jews with my bare hands. Allah is proud of me. Your son is a hero, he says. And you hear his mom saying, oh, great job, son, right? It was the largest calculated mass murder of Jews in a single day since the Holocaust. I don't know if I put that disclaimer on there before, but since the Holocaust. The New York Times wrote a 2-month investigation by the Times uncovered painful new details, establishing that the attacks against women were not isolated events, but part of a broader pattern of gender-based violence. All of this taking place on October 7th. They interviewed over 150 people, found more than 30 bodies of women and girls in and around that rave site, that outdoor party that we saw. Legs spread, clothes torn off, signs of abuse in their genital area. I'm going to read a little bit from the Times reporting. They did an extensive investigation of this. Let me just read a little bit of this for you, because I think it's only fair. And again, I want to give a warning if you don't want to listen to this yourself, or if you have young children around, I ask that you take this time to engage them in different activities. And again, this is a very lengthy investigative piece. I'm just going to read some of the things that took place that day. Here's one. The Times viewed photographs of one woman's corpse that emergency responders discovered in the rubble, with dozens of nails driven into her thighs and groin. The Times also viewed a video provided by the Israeli military showing 2 dead Israeli soldiers at a base near Gaza who appear to have been shot directly in their vaginas. This one, I've heard many accounts, different stories, many accounts. Screams without words is what they call this. A 24-year-old accountant has become one of the Israeli police's key witnesses. She does not want to be fully identified, saying she would be hounded for the rest of her life if her name were revealed. She attended the rave with several friends and provided investigators with graphic testimony. She also spoke to the Times in a 2-hour interview. She said that at 8 a.m. on October 7th, she was hiding under the low branches of a bushy tree just off Route 232, about 4 miles southwest of the party. She had been shot in the back. She felt faint. She covered herself in dry grass and lay as still as she could. About 15 meters from her hiding place, she says she saw motorcycles, cars, and trucks pulling up. She said that she saw about 100 men, most of them dressed in military fatigues and combat boots, a few in dark sweatsuits, getting in and out of the vehicles. She said the men congregated along the road and passed between them assault rifles, grenades, small missiles, and badly wounded women. It was like an assembly point, she said. The first victim, she said, she saw was a young woman with copper color hair, blood running down her back, hands pushed down to her knees. One man pulled her by the hair and made her bend over. Another penetrated her. And every time she flinched, he plunged a knife into her back. This is what we've learned over the course of 100 days. She said she then watched another woman shredded into pieces. While one terrorist raped her, another pulled out a box cutter and sliced off her breast. One continues to rape her, and the other throws her breast to someone else, and they play with it, throw it, and it falls on the road. She said the men sliced her face, and then the woman fell out of view. Around the same time, she said she saw 3 other women raped and terrorists carrying the severed heads of 3 more women. And it just goes on and on and on and on. This is where we find ourselves in our country today. Because we are experiencing Jewish children being locked in classrooms, trying to escape a mob of their fellow students who were just their fellow students the day before all of this. And now we've seen images of Jewish students or conservative students being locked into different spaces to protect them from a growing mob of fellow students. So this isn't just happening over there somewhere. It is here in our country. We see in New York City, almost every other week, we see more and more protests, pro-Palestinian protests. We see it happening in Europe. We now have South Africa going to the International Court of Justice, pleading for Gazans, claiming genocide. We see Israel. I see Israel being very tempered and disciplined. I don't know what you see, but that's what I see. I also see Israel being very determined that never again means never again. Leaving Palestinians with the state, but at the same time, making sure they never have the ability to do again what they've done on October 7th. I think you need to hear this. I've now done 3 broadcasts or podcasts on this topic. I think it is so important. We need to understand what evil is. There is nothing magnanimous about acting silly or being gullible or pretending there is no such thing as evil. If there was ever a day when we as a country, as a people, can point to something and identify it as evil, October 7th was that opportunity. And now 100 plus days later, with more facts, more figures, more stories and testimonies coming forward, we now understand that this was brutality on a whole different level. And they being Hamas, i.e. Palestinians, they weaponized sexual assault against women in the most inhumane way possible. I think it is incumbent upon us to see it, to know it, to speak it out loud. But I don't want to leave on a sad note. I want to show you some rays of hope. if you are on my, if you're listening to this on YouTube, then you can also watch it and you will see the photos, a couple of different photos. One photo is those white superior, Jews marching, trying to take over everything and the world. But in fact, what you see are two Black, brown Ethiopian women who are in the military, who are defending their country, Israel. So again, narratives, language, all of these things matter. It is not cute being gullible or being naive. The other picture, I thought it was a friend just passed it on to me not too long ago. It is a photo of his nephew, I believe, on their graduation. They are part of the paratroopers in Israel, and they were supposed to graduate on October 15th and have a ceremony. But of course, October 7th happened. They immediately got enlisted into the battle to protect Israel. They are 100 plus days later, still there, still fighting to secure Israel. But in these two photos, you will see that they were able to have their graduation. And one of the photos, you could see them in the midst of the rubble all around them in Gaza. You could see the Mediterranean Sea, and you can see them having the graduation that they were denied on October 15th. As dark as things seem to be at times, I am very grateful for what it is that the Israelis are doing in their part of the world to defend freedom. And I'm grateful to those who continue to fight on our part of the world, as well. And I'm grateful to you. Please share, like, subscribe to this podcast, The Kathy Barnette Show. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, blessings.